Hello, people. Welcome to the Creator Bricks, and today I have a review of the DC Multiverse Cheetah Page Punchers figure. So, this figure just went up for pre-order last week, and it already came. This is from GameStop. I guess GameStop is ridiculously quick with their pre-order fulfillment. So, yeah, I have the figure almost immediately after release, so that's pretty cool. So we'll start with a couple things here. This is probably not my ideal version of Cheetah. I'm more of a Barbara and Minerva kind of Cheetah person, more than Priscilla Rich's version, which is who this is right here. That's who that is. That's Priscilla Rich Cheetah, who is Cheetah pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths, and probably not the Cheetah most people are familiar with, where it's the humanoid version of the Cheetah. With Priscilla's version here, she does have a value being kind of second most iconic, I guess you could say, version of the Cheetah, and she does have a kind of iconic costume for her interpretation of the Cheetah, even though it's probably not as interesting, I would say. She's more of the Catwoman knockoff-esque character. Nonetheless, she still has her place in DC's history as being the original Cheetah, even if she is a bit of a knockoff of one of DC's other characters. That she is one of Wonder Woman's most iconic villains. So there's that. The reason I mainly wanted her is because I don't have any Wonder Woman villains in the collection. So getting a Cheetah on my shelf was a big point to fulfill her place in the Legion of Doom, because she is a big member of the Legion of Doom. As you can see kind of back there, there's pretty much a good chunk of Legion of Doom members there you got. So I kind of needed this version of the figure. Kind of sucks that she's a red platinum. You can see that right there. So as a red platinum figure, she is going to be harder to get, which I think kind of sucks for a character who is as important to Legion of Doom as Cheetah is. If you're trying to build the team out, kind of sucks that you're going to have to fork over a bit of money for Cheetah, like probably more than you'd want, because this is definitely going to probably get scalped. I haven't seen how much she's going for currently because she's just came out. I myself paid $40 for her from GameStop, including shipping. So I wasn't really too happy about that because it's already $28 for the figure on top of $10 shipping and then like $2 or $3 in tax. So I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good. But I know she's gonna end up getting scalped by people. So that's enough about like the background of the figure. As a figure itself, how does this fare? So the printing for this print here, I get this Cheetah print here, almost looks like a Scooby-Doo. Is what it reminds me of, but it's pretty much clean throughout. I was hoping this tail would be articulated, but it's not, just one little stiff piece right here. I mean, it's well done, so not much I can be really mad about besides that it's not articulated, but you know, it looks good. It's in the proper spot. You know, they did everything pretty well in terms of the printing. Big fan of these alternate hands here. They're pretty nice. I like these. I like the claws on there. Do get a set of gripping hands here. You know, these are kind of lame. I'm going to be personally sticking with the clawed hands instead of those, but if you like the gripping hands, you know, you can go with that too. She also does come with two alternate heads as well. This is the one that's on the figure when you get her out of the box. It's just more like stone face, kind of inquisitive, I guess you could say, head. And then you get the angry head, which between this and the one I have on the figure already, I think are probably the best ones. I like this kind of light smile that she has going on. It's more villainous. And then the angry head just fits. You compare all three of them, I think the neutral one's probably the lamest one, but most people are probably going to go with that. But I like the smile. Very old school type of villain thing here, where it's just a light little thing in terms of a smile. Let's look at her articulation. Upwards, you get that much. Downwards, you get that much. If you really press the crunch, you can get a little bit of crunch right there. It's not too much. Backwards, you get a good amount. Splits is good. Nothing in terms of thigh articulation. And then something I'll point out real quick. Thigh-high boot sculpt here, which just doesn't fit the costume for Cheetah. She doesn't have thigh-high boots. It's just one spandex costume, so I don't know why they refused to redo this part of the figure. They reused this figure for Batwoman, and they left it there, and it just looked awkward because there was boots, and then you get a thigh-high boot at the top. It was weird. But yeah, that's something I want to point out. It does look awkward right there, having that sculpt right there for the thigh highs. Double jointed knees go all the way in. This is how much you go up in terms of the ankle. Here's how much you go back, and toe hinge. And then outward is this much. I'm sure you can get more out of that. If I take the arm out and then mess around with the cuff, I could probably get more. For right now, it goes out that far. And then you get a bicep swivel. Double jointed elbow goes all the way in. Wrist goes up, down, and spins all the way around at both points of the wrist. In terms of articulation, she's pretty good. There's not too much I can really complain about. I just wish there was more crunch and maybe that there was more in terms of the thigh, but it's pretty good all around. Like a good amount up, good amount down, and pretty much most things that you want. So you can get her in some good kind of crunching positions here. I can demonstrate. So for example, here's my attempt at recreating her pose from the box art. So I got it decently close. I can't quite get that position right there with the thigh. You would need a thigh cut for that sort of thing if you want to get it inward like that. A benefit of having that tail is it holds the figure up for this kind of pose, for the crouching, so that's pretty good. And then because of how soft the diaper is, I was able to get her into this sort of almost running kind of pose that you'd probably want to get her into because, you know, it's a cheetah woman, so, you know, kind of like a all fours kind of running thing, you know. So I don't know. And then here's sort of a pondering how to kill Wonder Woman pose. And here's just a random test of balance just for just for an idea of what you can get her into for posing, I guess. So there's a good idea of how articulated this figure is. So pretty good articulation wise, but here's the next part. So here she is with the Page Puncher's Wonder Woman that came out recently. So you kind of got a continuity kind of going on here between the Page Punchers. So we got Cheetah and then we got Wonder Woman right here. So as you can see, she is very, very short in comparison. And if I get a measurer out here, or just some measuring tape, you can see that Wonder Woman's about 7.5 inches, but she's not fully stood, so maybe a little bit closer to 7 3/4 of an inch. And then Cheetah is about like 6 3/4. So in terms of their height difference, it is about an inch difference right here, which means Diana's huge, which if you think about in continuity, Diana would be huge. She's like 6 foot, I believe, in continuity for DC Comics. I don't know what she was at the time for the like early days of Wonder Woman that this figure comes from. Oh, modern Wonder Woman's pretty tall. And then we got Cheetah here, who's pretty much just a normal woman, just standard human. The Greek demigod, so the height difference I think is understandable. 6 foot versus 5'4". I think there's going to be a massive height difference here. You know, I think there's going to be a difference. So I don't actually mind the huge height difference, even though it is jarring and she looks kind of awkward with my Legion of Doom, which I'll show you at the end how she looks with the Legion of Doom. But yeah, I think this makes sense in terms of height comparison. So yeah, if you want to see how she would look on a possible Legion of Doom shelf, here's my personal Legion of Doom. So here's how she looks next to all the other kind of big bads I have over here. Funny that this figure is from Crisis on Infinite Earths, at least the issue that comes with it is from Crisis. So I got Antimatter right there with a planet, and then Antimatter's kind of swarming Earth right there, and then Darkseid and everything. So yeah, here's what she would possibly look like next to a Legion of Doom. So in terms of my thoughts on the figure, I think they did a good job of replicating this version of Cheetah's design, minus the thigh-high sculpting right here. In terms of execution, I think it's probably about like a 9. I think the articulation could have been better, like I said, on the thigh articulation and the crunch, but I think everything else in terms of, well, also for the tail as well. So actually, you know what? 8.5. I changed my mind. It's an 8.5. It could have been a little bit better. If they actually had a crunch and if they made an articulated tail, I think this would have been a 9. And then another thing that holds it down is the thigh-high sculpt, like I said. And everything else, though, I think is pretty good. You get a good amount. There's not really much I would have included with this. So the alternate faces, I think, are good. And then get the alternate hands. Well, these kind of suck, but like I think these are probably what you're going to be going with anyway for a Cheetah figure, you know, just the kind of clawed hands. So yeah, I don't mind the accessories, and then I forgot to mention you get the card as well. I always forget the card. So yeah, it's just Priscilla Rich right there. It's her design. Overall, I think this is a good interpretation of Priscilla Rich's design as the Cheetah. So yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. Not too much I can really say. I will say another thing holding her back actually is her price. I really don't like the modern pricing for McFarlane where it's $28 for a Page Puncher. I think that's kind of ridiculous. And I ended up paying $40 for this because of the shipping. I won't hold that against Todd because not everywhere has the $10 shipping, and it was a pre-order, so I'm just gonna judge it based on the $28. I think the $28 is a little ridiculous. You know, you get this is a 40-year-old comic reissue. It's not that high of like demand thing here. And then you get figure itself, which I think ideally this should be like $20 for the figure here, a card, and then a stand. So, and then the comic honestly should probably be like $1 in value. So, in terms of everything, I think this is like in theory this should only be like $21 in value. I could see like the old pricing of 25 for this. 28 is pushing me. I don't like that price at all. But for this character, I was willing to bite, but not every character I'm willing to bite that for. There's a select few I'm willing to bite, but some other ones I wouldn't be as optimistic to bite on in terms of that price tag. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the figure. I think this is a good representation. Probably not your ideal cheetah, but I think this is a good figure. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. If you want to get this figure, you can look it up on McFarlane's website, and you can find the figure. If you can even find it, though, because it's a red platinum. Just all the stupid different labels that Todd makes us deal with, but whatever. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. If you like this video, let me know. And that's it. So, see you around.